Mike took out his smartphone and shoved it in my face. Look, isn't she cute? What appeared was a girl in a uniform, making a peace sign. Upon seeing it, I exclaimed, "Ah." Why did Mike have a photo of this girl? I couldn't understand. My mind was in turmoil. "Mike, this girl." My voice trembled. Cutting off the words I was about to say, Mike shouted. "This girl, she's my daughter." "What?" Dropped among the confusion in my heart. Unbelievable. Could this really be happening? My thoughts couldn't keep up. "From today, I'll be living with my daughter. If you don't like it, we can get a divorce and you can leave." "Excuse me?" Does he even understand what he's saying? I faced Mike, feeling a rising anger. "I'm fine with a divorce, but are you sure? Because..." Before I could finish, Mike's phone started ringing. Without excusing himself, he answered it. The call was to inform him of his daughter's arrival. Glaring at Mike's excited back, I pondered the next move. How should I confront him with the truth? After all the times he looked down on me, I'll pay him back double. His time to laugh and be merry is only now. My name is Mina. I'm a 36-year-old housewife. Last year, I married Mike after being introduced by a coworker. "At least for a while after we get married, I want you to focus on housework and support me," Mike had wished, so I quit my job as a tutor, leading to my current situation. My previous job was so busy that being a full-time housewife felt surprisingly free. Feeling somewhat guilty towards Mike, I once suggested, maybe I should work until we have kids, but Mike easily dismissed it. "I want to focus on my work." "If Mina works, eventually you'll start asking me to help with housework, right?" I hate that idea. Indeed, I was handling all the housework. But it wouldn't be this way if we were both working. "But I feel bad having you work all the time," I said. Mike smiled contentedly. "Exactly. That's what I like. Being a housewife makes you appreciate me more. You start to respect me. If we both worked, you'd start demanding rights and stuff. You're quite passionate about this. It's as if you've had experience with a working couple before." I didn't say it out loud, but his words seemed to have a sharp edge. As if looking down on housewives. When I gave Mike a skeptical look, he laughed heartily. "Back when I lived with an ex-girlfriend, we had all sorts of problems. Don't look at me like that, don't be jealous. I'm all about Mina now." "If you say so." "Wow, this meatloaf is delicious. Keep making me great meals like this." "Sure." Fortunately, Mike's income was enough for the two of us to live on. While I felt guilty for not earning, I didn't dislike housework. If he's okay with it, continuing as a housewife wasn't a burden. Above all, if he appreciates it, then it's worth doing. Thus, I continued my life as a housewife. However, just a few months later, Mike said something completely opposite to what he had said before. "How about you start working again?" "Huh? But you said you wanted me to stay a housewife." Confused by his sudden change of heart, Mike sighed and said, "That was only for the beginning of our marriage. You must be used to it by now, right?" "Used to it?" I parroted back, and Mike narrowed his eyes in annoyance. "So, you should be able to handle both work and housework now, right?" "What? You expect me to work full-time and still do all the housework as before?" "Of course. I've let you take it easy till now." "What is that supposed to mean?" At first, I thought what a leisurely life it was. Compared to when I was a full-time employee, being a housewife seemed to have more free time. But it was far from an easy life. Being a housewife meant no fixed working hours, but also no fixed days off. Housework is a daily affair, meaning there's no time to rest. Mike relaxed on his days off, but I was actually busier, trying to cater to his needs. I made dishes he wanted, even if I had to look up recipes, and kept the house clean to meet his demands. If I ever slacked off, I'd be mocked with, "Can't you even do this as a housewife?" After getting married, there wasn't a single day I felt I could relax. "And when I said I wanted to take a part-time job, you refused." "Yeah, because part-time jobs are just for pocket money, right? I can't stand the idea of you slacking off on housework because of that." At his reasoning, I was speechless and froze. He wanted me to be a stay-at-home wife on his terms, and now this? It's like I'm some kind of parasite. "Anyway, I've supported you all this time, so it's about time you start working and pay me back," Mike said as if it was the most natural thing in the world. I was speechless. I couldn't agree with doing things Mike's way. But thinking about the future, it's important for me to start earning my own income. Who knows when he'll start saying we should split the living expenses. A few days later, I returned to my job as a tutor. I hadn't expected to find a job so quickly. The tutoring school I worked at before getting married happened to be hiring. Thankfully, I was lucky enough to get the job.
Goodbye, teacher.
Yes, goodbye. Take care. Returning to work was hard, but the students were also adorable and made it worthwhile. I teach middle school students. Of course, some were there reluctantly, just because their parents said so. Those kids are the hardest to teach because they lack motivation.
I've told you, no smartphones during class, Julie.
I was dealing with the student known as the biggest troublemaker in the tutoring school. Julie Brown. When she enrolled, her mother had high hopes. But the girl herself was either sleeping or on her phone every time. And she didn't seem the least bit remorseful no matter how many times she was warned.
You've come all this way, let's work hard together, okay?
The girl with bright brown hair glanced at me and snorted disdainfully.
Maybe it's your teaching that's the problem? You should make the lessons more interesting if you want us to care.
You have a point.
But for that to happen, I need your cooperation.
What?
I'm paying, so I'm the customer here, right? And you're telling the customer what to do.
Despite being more than 20 years younger, she was defiant. Honestly, it was frustrating, but the fact that she could come up with a comeback so quickly showed she was smart. If only she applied herself, she could improve her grades. But it's hard when the person herself has no motivation at all. She seemed to enjoy making things difficult, always smirking confidently. Eventually, she stood up, grabbing her things.
Is the lecture over? I mean, I'm here, isn't that enough?
The problem is your teaching. See ya. I wish I could just leave her be. But then I'd get complaints from her mother. This is tough. With my head in my hands, I headed home. The first thing I saw upon returning was Mike on the couch, messing with his smartphone. I'm home. When I spoke, Mike kept his eyes on his phone and let out a dissatisfied grunt.
You're late. I'm starving here. Dinner's not ready?
It's in the fridge, just heat it up like I always tell you.
Why do I have to prepare my own meal when I'm tired from work? What's the point of getting married if I don't understand?
Since returning to work, we've had this conversation countless times. Usually, I get home first, but once or twice a week, Mike gets home before me. He says he can't cook, so I suggested he could buy some ready-made meals if he couldn't wait, but he refused.
You just want to take it easy, don't you? And you call yourself a wife. You were so diligent during our honeymoon phase. It's amazing how things change in just a few months.
You're the one who changed first. Moving from a stay-at-home wife to full-time meant we should have shared the chores. Yet, refusing that left me with two choices: cut corners or overextend myself. For some reason, Mike couldn't stand me cutting corners. So, I had no choice but to overextend. I'd prepare dinner early in the morning, store it in the fridge, and quickly reheat it upon returning home. It felt like I was living like a slave, too drained to even argue. I don't even know why I didn't divorce him then. I guess part of me considered it when I decided to go back to full-time work. But without a clear trigger, I couldn't bring myself to do it. Then, one day, something happened that pushed me over the edge. Mike came home drunk.
At least change into your pajamas first. Huh? You're so picky. That's why you're not good enough for me. What?
He collapsed onto the bed in his suit, snoring away with his smartphone in hand. I can't just leave him like this, I thought, trying to move his phone away. That's when a message popped up on the screen. My eyes widened in shock.
What's this?
Had a great time today.
We should have a sleepover again soon.
The message was from someone named Cindy, likely a woman. From the message, it was clear he'd been drinking with this Cindy today.
A sleepover, huh?
Mentioning again implied this wasn't their first. It was too soon to jump to conclusions, but it was enough to suspect infidelity. If Mike was cheating, I couldn't let it slide. I'd divorce him. Unfortunately, his phone was locked, so I couldn't gather more evidence right then. The next day, I immediately hired a private investigator. It was expensive and they warned me they might not find anything. But within days, they presented clear evidence. Mike had been leaving his Wednesday night. drinking sessions with coworkers early to meet a woman. And they'd go to a hotel together. After all the times he treated me like a slave, to think he was also cheating. The moment I realized Mike had betrayed me, I was filled with rage more than shock or sadness. I can't forgive this. I was determined not to let him get away with it. I wanted to confront him with the divorce papers immediately, but I waited until I had all my ducks in a row. After gathering enough evidence for divorce, I just needed to find the right moment. Meanwhile, I kept up with the minimal housework, biding my time. "You seem to be in a good mood lately, Mina," Mike commented one morning when we both had the day off. After breakfast, as I was doing the dishes, he lounged on the sofa and spoke up. "Do you think so?" I replied non-committally, and he nodded. "Yeah, you haven't been nagging about ready meals or bossing me around. Good for you." He seemed to think he was praising me. Looking for my reaction. Did he really think I'd be pleased? I felt no pride in being praised like this. Was he referring to when I asked him to take care of himself as bossing him around? Cheating on me and then acting so condescending? Or maybe I'm at fault for being looked down upon like this. A sense of unease spread through me. Mike, grinning, stood next to me as I was doing the dishes. "If you can handle this much, Mina, then you'll be fine." "Fine with what?" "Be happy. Our family is getting bigger." "What?" I stopped washing the dishes and tilted my head, confused. I had no idea what he was talking about. Mike, a man, couldn't possibly be pregnant, could he? He took out his smartphone and thrust it in my face. "Look, isn't she cute?" What appeared was a girl in a uniform, making a peace sign. I exclaimed in surprise upon seeing it. Why did Mike have a photo of this girl? I couldn't understand. My mind was in turmoil. "Mike, this girl." My voice trembled. Interrupting what I was about to say, Mike shouted. "This girl, she's my daughter." "What?" It felt like a bomb had been dropped in the midst of my confusion. I almost screamed out loud and covered my mouth with my hand in shock. Unbelievable. Could this really be happening? My thoughts couldn't keep up. A few seconds later, I managed to squeeze out some words and softly asked Mike. "This girl is your daughter? But you said you've never been married." Before we got married, we had thoroughly checked each other's family backgrounds. Mike had no record of a previous marriage. Mike smiled proudly in response to my agitation. "I lived with her mother but never married. Kind of like a secret child, huh? Like a celebrity, right?" Despite it being nothing to brag about, Mike told me with an air of superiority. He continued with another unbelievable statement. "She's moving in with us starting today. If you don't like it, we can get a divorce and you can leave." "What?" I was flabbergasted and frowned. Does he even understand what he's saying? Suddenly revealing a secret child and declaring she would move in, leaving me no choice in the matter. This was beyond a joke. He was completely underestimating me. The most infuriating part was that Mike thought threatening divorce would make me back down. I faced Mike, feeling a rising anger. "I'm fine with a divorce, but are you sure?" "Because..." Before I could finish, Mike's phone started ringing. Without excusing himself, he answered it. I watched him, glaring. "It's my daughter calling. She just arrived." "What did you say?" "Don't look so scared. Come on, let's go and welcome her at the door." I reluctantly followed an excited Mike to the door. "Julie! You made it! I've been waiting." I almost got lost. "Geez. I wanted you to come pick me up. Why didn't you?" "Sorry. I was just introducing you to my wife, Mina." "Look, this is my wife, Mina." Mike tapped me on the shoulder, tilting his body to push me forward. I made eye contact with the girl he was talking to. She was exactly the girl I saw on the phone. Her face, initially wearing an unpleasant smile, suddenly widened in recognition and exclaimed, "Oh." Julie pointed at me, trembling. "You're the tutor." Yes, the daughter Mike brought home was Julie Brown, a student from the tutoring center where I work. Mike, sensing something was off from our reaction, looked back and forth between Julie and me, asking, "What's going on?" "Well, this person..." Julie glanced at me nervously before running over to Mike. I smiled as broadly as I could and interrupted Julie. "What a surprise! To think that Julie was your daughter, Mike." Mike, surprised at my use of Julie's name, gaped. Mina, you know Julie?
Know her? Julie is a student at the tutoring center where I work, right, Julie?
Julie shifted her gaze to the ground and muttered, yeah.
What a coincidence. This must be fate.
Mike laughed, oblivious to everything. We then moved to the living room for a long, important discussion that couldn't be settled in the hallway. As soon as we entered, Mike flopped onto the sofa.
Well, it's great that you two already know each other. Saves me the trouble of introductions.
Oh.
And now, Julie doesn't even need to go tutoring. She can learn directly from you at home.
Mike nodded happily, clearly in a good mood. I ignored his comments while pulling out several papers from a drawer. Papers that would change the course of my life. I marched up to Mike, sitting on the sofa, and thrust the papers at him.
Huh? What's this? Divorce papers. I've already filled out my part, you just need to fill out yours. What?
Mike exclaimed, snatching the papers from me to examine them closely.
These are really divorce papers. Hey! Mina, why would you bring such a thing?
Oh, didn't you say it yourself?
Forgot? If you don't like it, we can get a divorce and you can leave.
Mike was speechless, his mouth opening and closing.
I did say that, but I meant it as a figure of speech. I never thought Mina would actually confront me with such a thing.
Oh.
And where does this confidence come from, I wonder? It's not like your looks or income are exceptional. Not to mention your personality. What did you say?
Mike's face turned red with anger.
All this high and mighty talk. I won't accept it. I'm not agreeing to a divorce. But you were the one who suggested divorce first. Are you going back on your word now? I never said that. Do you have any proof I said it? Unless you recorded it, but you didn't, right? We shouldn't even be talking about divorce, it's ridiculous.
Mike's ease at lying only fueled my anger further. His audacity knew no bounds. Not only retracting his statement, but acting as if it never happened. What's infuriating is that Mike thought, even after making such outrageous statements, I would simply accept them. Perhaps the old me would have silently agreed without protest. But I'm different now. I have obtained a significant weapon in my hands. I handed him that weapon, the papers.
I didn't record it, but I have this. What do you think? This? What is this?
Mike hesitantly took the papers and gasped.
Why do you have this? Where did you get these photos?
I nearly laughed at how flustered he was. The photos that had shaken Mike so much were ones I obtained from a detective agency, showing him with his affair partner.
They're well taken, right? Perfect as evidence of your affair, don't you think? Ideal for sealing the deal on a divorce. No, that.
Mike looked desperately from side to side. His previously confident demeanor gone, resembling a cornered suspect.
There are plenty more where that came from. It was quite the effort gathering these.
Look, Julie, you should see this too.
No,
Julie tried to refuse, but when I insisted on showing her, she froze.
Mom?
She cried out in disbelief, her face a mix of shock and confusion.
Yes, that's Cindy Brown in the photos. Your mother, and Mike's affair partner.
Julie glared at me bitterly after a moment's hesitation.
Don't call my mom an affair partner. She and Dad are my parents. It's not weird for them to meet.
Mike seized the moment to add.
Yeah. Cindy and I are Julie's parents. There's nothing strange about us meeting.
The audacity to say such things, even when confronted with undeniable proof.
There's no evidence you and Cindy were ever married. She's a single mother, and you have no divorce record, right? Besides, even if you were ex-spouses, sneaking off to hotels without telling your current wife is wrong.
Mike and Julie faltered for a moment but quickly regained their composure.
Proof? A DNA test would clear everything up. The hotel was just because we had nowhere else to meet.
Mike stammered. The ease with which he spun lies was astonishing. Had he been lying like this throughout our marriage, betraying me without a shred of guilt? The thought was both pathetic and infuriating. The only consolation was realizing the truth. The idea of spending the rest of my life with Mike sent shivers down my spine.
Well, Cindy had no intention of getting back with you, did she? Huh? How would you know that, Mina?
Because. I glanced at Julie, who remained silent. Julie's gaze awkwardly shifted away as it met mine.
Julie told me once at the tutoring center. Cindy has a man she plans to marry soon. And for the wedding fund, Julie was going to get money from her father. What?
Mike looked back and forth between me and Julie.
No, that can't be true, right, Julie? Cindy remarrying? And trying to take money from me, that's just cruel, right? Well,
Julie mumbled something, clearly finding it hard to speak. Seeing this, Mike became furious.
Is that true? That bastard Cindy. No wonder it was odd she suddenly wanted to leave Julie with me for a bit. Just dumping her daughter on me because she's a nuisance for her remarriage? It's not like that, Dad. Mom wouldn't.
How is it not like that?
It's exactly like that, isn't it? That woman, thinking she could just leave her daughter with me for a few months and get a large sum of money in return, promising to thank me, what nonsense.
Mike muttered resentfully to himself. Convinced he was the victim. Enough with his tragic hero act. Besides, I don't have time for this farce.
What Cindy plans doesn't matter to me. The problem is, Mike, you had an affair. That's it. I want a divorce and alimony. Please sign the divorce papers quickly. Wait, Mina. I was deceived too. I never imagined it would come to this.
Mike pleaded, reaching out to me, but I swiftly brushed his hand aside. Disgusting. How much more can he underestimate people? Does he really think such excuses will work?
You weren't deceived. You gave in to your desires and had an affair with Cindy. Then, blinded by money, you took Julie in. That's the truth, isn't it? Even if that's the truth, it was under different pretenses. I was deceived.
It's pointless arguing. He can't even admit to his own actions. This man is beyond help.
I can't deal with this. You three can discuss this among yourselves. It has nothing to do with me, and frankly, I couldn't care less. If you won't sign the divorce papers now, we'll have to discuss it later with a lawyer.
I had already prepared for the divorce, packing only what I needed into one carry-on suitcase. Being a housewife, I wasn't allowed to spend money freely, so the things I truly valued were surprisingly few. I grabbed my suitcase and car keys, quickening my pace towards the door.
Hey! Wait, Mina! We're not done talking. Are you just going to abandon me like this?
Mike staggered after me, his self-centeredness on full display. He had always only thought about himself. Telling me to be a housewife because he didn't want to do housework. Then telling me to work because he begrudged the money. It's laughable that I ever listened to him.
Hey! Mina! Just listen to me a little longer. I still have things to say. I've said all I need to. I have so much resentment towards you that I couldn't possibly express it all in the time we have, so I'll condense it all and consult a lawyer. But what about the housework if you're gone? Julie is here starting today, and I've already bought a car expecting your salary. Where's the money going to come from?
His disappointment is astounding, even now.
You can do the housework yourself. Work it out with Julie. And don't rely on others for money. It's your responsibility for buying a car without consulting me. Don't dump it all on me. But
I had never been able to firmly retaliate against Mike like this before. But once I did, it was easy. Seeing a grown man tear up and slump was both pitiful and comical. Julie peered out from behind Mike, tentatively.
Mina, please, think it over calmly. You're just upset now. You'll regret it later.
Julie's forced smile was new to me. She must have realized her situation was dire. Her mother was caught up in a new romance and couldn't be relied on. Her father was incapable of housework and burdened with car loans and upcoming other payments. It makes sense she'd try to convince me to stay.
It's the first time you've called me. You never even looked up from your phone during classes, much less made eye contact. Julie, things might be tough from here on, but hang in there. If it's about your studies, you can always talk to me at the tutoring center. Oh, but maybe you won't need that anymore. You never seem to have the motivation, and tutoring fees can be quite expensive.
Mike might not even be able to afford tutoring fees anymore. Julie's face was filled with despair.
Wait! Please! Well, take care then,
I said, shaking off the pleading voice and getting into my car. After that, Mike and I got divorced. Mike begged for reconciliation, claiming he would change, that he would be reborn. But how could I possibly believe that now?
If you keep this up, I'll take the evidence of your affair and storm into your workplace.
Despite appearances, Mike was very concerned about what others thought. Being known as a cheater who drove his wife away was the last thing he wanted. As expected, Mike accepted the affair. Life after the divorce seemed to be quite hard for him. Julie apparently couldn't do any household chores either, resulting in meals made entirely of pre-packaged foods. They pushed cleaning and laundry onto each other, turning their home into a mess. The sink was overflowing with dishes, and the garbage disposal was clogged.
I'll pay, so could you help out?
He begged, but who would willingly go back to that?
Why don't you use that money to hire a professional?
I suggested it kindly. Sure enough, Julie quit the tutoring center. It's a pity if she had been serious about her studies, but with her attitude, it was a waste of money anyway. I continue to work as a tutoring teacher. I have honest students and those with a bit of trouble. Yet, none are as problematic as Julie, making my job much less stressful lately. What I've learned is that when children have issues, often their parents do too. As a seasoned teacher who deals with both students and their parents, this has been a valuable lesson. If I ever remarry and become someone's parent, I hope to help my child become a respectable adult. At least, I vow not to end up like that family.